And right. Hi everybody, Arsenal Fan Circle. We are doing a new section here, probably a monthly section. I'm calling it right now the state of the game. So right now the state of the game is Arsenal have just lost against City. I'm able to put that in its own pigeonhole and file it away. It's another game out of the way for me. Gary, don't waste that tweet. I know you feel a little bit differently about it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I feel like it's a game that we need to build on for our next one, especially for our next one, because that to me seems to be the most. That should have been our most important game. So we need to come into this game with a plan that allows us to kind of build on it. Yes, we're playing one of the top teams in the world, right? Essentially, as far as form goes and where they
Mhm.
plan to go. So I wanted to see some fight from us. Not every team looks at them and goes, you know what, we're just going to lay down and take it. I think we needed to come out with an opportunity to win. I don't. If we don't, that's fine. But I wanted us to actually try. Just try.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like we tried today, like the way I thought we could have. And we need to build on it for the next one because that's the next for us right now. Every game's important. The next one is the most important thing that we probably have all season in the sense that there's something we can get out of that as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
gonna
next game is always the most important one, right?
definitely.
Uh, want to bring in Charlie, a top lad here, West Ham supporter. And Charlie, you've got to be living your best life right now as a West Ham supporter.
Well, I mean, our next game is Manchester City, so don't worry, guys. We'll get them back for you. We got this. We'll bang them up. It'll be fine. Yeah, it's a bit wild at the moment. I can't lie. We're having actual conversations in the fan base about whether or not we can make Europe, and it's not insane. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
today, like for example, we beat Tottenham, great result, and we're now 9 points ahead of them. So it's a bit of an insane situation for us to find ourselves in. We've got the most amount of points since the last season at the Bolin, and even then, we've got more points than we had then at this stage of the season. So it's since I've been alive, it's the most insane ride we've had.
Fourth place, lost 6 games, won 13. What have you seen David Moyes do? Because I know we talked earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way: Arsenal were supposed to be fourth, and West Ham were supposed to be 10th.
Yeah.
That's not the situation.
No, and I didn't like David Moyes then either, which is weird. Not that I like him now, to be fair. I'm still not a huge fan of his. But I think the things he has done is he's found the right tactic and the right system for the right players we have. And the key people in that squad have stayed completely fit. Mikel Antonio is the big problem because he doesn't have hamstrings, he has cheese strings in his legs. It's insane. The guy gets injured more times than he scores. But outside of that, the key people, looking at Declan Rice, you're looking at Thomas Souček specifically, have been immense and have been consistent and have not been injured and are a huge part of that. I mean, Thomas Souček, who's our joint top goal scorer, even top goal scorer, I think at this point, from defensive midfield, shows you how crucial he has been. He's got 8 goals, 7 goals, something like that. You're looking at signings like Craig Dawson on loan, who everyone, apart from me, I just want to say that now, apart from me, everyone criticized him. I was like, I quite like Craig Dawson. I'll take that on loan. I'm happy with that. Everyone else, nah, Craig Dawson's rubbish. One of the players of the season. It's everything's fallen into place. Before we started recording here, we mentioned Leicester, for example, when they won the title that year, everything fell into place for them and it worked out. And it's similar to us now. Everything has fallen into place and it's worked out for us. It's just a case of, can we keep it going? We've got a ridiculous run coming up. I remember when we faced last time, we were about to go on the hardest run of the season because we had every single big team in a row. We've essentially got that again now. And at the other end of that, we're going to be able to tell whether we can actually walk around singing the Champions League song unironically, or whether we're going to be looking at a more modest finish, let's say.
How would you say expectations are for the West Ham fans right now in terms of Europe? And definitely Europa League is on the cards, if not Champions League.
Yeah, it's being sung. It's being sung. I have heard someone go, "The champions," at least 3 times in the past week. it's not. I'm slightly more pessimistic about our opportunity to get there. I think we're looking at a side and saying, do you know what? We've got a really good squad to build off of here, but we're not quite ready for that. And I think if we were to get European football, next season would be a struggle for us because we've got a very thin squad. We've not got quite the depth we need. But I think most people are looking at this fixture list coming up, because the fixture list coming up, we've got all of the big teams and all the teams we're going to struggle with, teams like Leeds, stuff like that, where not only if they beat us will we be losing points, but a team around us will be gaining points, which isn't something we usually look at. Usually we look at the likes of Arsenal, Tottenham, Manchester United, Chelsea, and all these people and say, if we get points there, that's bonus points. The rest of the season is our bread and butter. These are our bread and butter games. So at the other end of that, we'll actually be able to see it. But as a fan base, most people would now say they would be disappointed if we weren't to finish, say, 7th or up. So we're looking into trying to fight into the Europa League positions, or the Europa League Conference, Europa League 2 thing that's happening next season is another possibility of ours. Lots of people getting excited for Thursday night football in Azerbaijan, I think, is the vibe.
It's not all it's cracked up, I think, Gary, and I will tell you, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And Gary, definitely, if you've got any questions or you want to jump in, just jump in there and ask Charlie. But lots of teams lining up behind you, Charlie. You got Chelsea, you got Liverpool, Everton, Aston Villa for 4 behind you. A couple of them drifting down the table. Liverpool, they've just had an horrendous season. Who do you think is your main competitors for that 4th place?
Could you just ask me that question again? I just want to let it wave over me. I need to savor it now while it happens, because I don't think it's going to happen again. So just ask me again, and I'll just let me take it in.
Let's just say two point gap over Chelsea, 5 points over Liverpool, 5 points over Everton, and 9 points ahead of Aston Villa and Tottenham. You like that? You like the sound of that? Right?
We're just massive. That's what we are. We're just the best team in the country. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Chelsea, Liverpool, and Everton. I think they're the main ones. I think Everton and Liverpool. I think Everton definitely have at least 1 game on us, for example, if not 2. So there's some games there to be won where they could close the gap. We are in a position, thankfully, where I don't think anyone can pass us if they win their games in hand right now, but they can at least close that gap. So I think those teams are the ones that are against us. I think the benefit those teams have opposed to us is they just have bigger squads. We have a really, really thin squad. For example, I mentioned Thomas Souček and Declan Rice, for example. If either of those players get injured, we are in deep doo-doo. Because we do not have any significant replacements for them. We have Mark Noble, who, bless his cotton socks, is definitely past it. And we'd all love to see him because he's Mark Noble, but he's not going to live up to the standards. And then past that, we have literally no one. So there's some. If any of their teams get injuries, then they'll probably be able to supplement it with a decent enough player. You know, you look at, for example, on the teams I've just mentioned, Chelsea, who have all of those incredible players they bought in the summer, for example, not all of them firing on all cylinders, but they're there. We really don't have many, if anyone at all. On the bench today against Tottenham, we had 2 centre-backs and 2 goalkeepers, for context. That's how few senior players we actually have fit. So if we sustain injuries, we will probably struggle a lot, but they are the main competitors, and that's probably where they stand to beat us.
As Arsenal fans, we're looking at West Ham next month. It's actually probably the same day next month. We are going to be facing West Ham. As a West Ham supporter, what do you see? How do you see Arsenal progressing or non-progressing, as you may phrase it?
I don't know. Being honest, I look at it and I think I like your manager, but I also think it's maybe early for him, but then I like a lot of your players, but I also think it's early for them. For example, I was talking to one of my my closest friends who's an Arsenal fan earlier on today, and he's of the opinion, correct, feel free to shoot him down, by the way, because I shoot him down all the time, but he's of the opinion that, for example, your best 3 behind a striker would be a case of Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, and Martinelli, who all great players, all very capable players, all can do excellent things on their day, but you would say are maybe 2 seasons away from being solidified in my opinion, I would say 2 seasons away from being solidified, should be starting every game, should be banging it out, would be good enough to play in a team who are top 4, everything else. I look at that and I think Arsenal are early in their development. They're at the stage where you can see the sprouts are starting to happen, but they've not got everything fit and firing. You know, the defense is still a little bit wonky. You've got like a couple of star players, but like say Aubameyang, for example, who is a star guy. He's not been consistent this entire season as he has been in previous ones. He's at the age where that's going to start becoming an issue. I think you've got all the sprouts there for in a couple of seasons' time. It's about, at this stage for me, I'd be looking to sort of supplement them with star players like you did with Thomas Partey, to be fair. And I think his injury earlier in the season probably hampered your progress to an extent. But that sort of thing where you look at, you go, here's a ready-made guy we can put in and is going to be excellent and unreal. And then that can allow you to supplement it with those youth players who are a little bit diamonds in the rough as opposed to just a straight diamond at this point.
Gary, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I like that lineup.
Kind of agree with Saka, Martinelli, and Emile Smith-Rowe behind.
Yeah, I mean, that for me, as I've said multiple times, Martinelli was one of the bright lights that we had last year, including, Saka. Those two players basically, to me, were what I would consider, the future for Arsenal if that's the way they want to go. I mean, and this year, hopefully, we were waiting for him to come back in January. He came back a lot sooner than that. Maybe he came back too soon because, he's been in and out of the lineup. But I definitely felt like he was one of for me, a player that I could see wearing the shirt and playing pretty much every week in the future. Like you said, right now, too soon right now. But in the future, there would be players that we would be leaning on when they're like in their, when they're in their 20s. We're talking about players that aren't even in their 20s yet, and we're depending on them right now, which is part of the concern is that we have to lean on them right now, and we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't. That shouldn't be the plan. And that's the concern because we don't want to burn them out too soon in their careers. That I think anybody believes that they could have good ones, especially Saka from what he's done so far. We've been able to keep him off the training table so far, and that's been a good thing. So yeah, I like that lineup. I would like to see it. For some reason, we don't get to see it. Maybe it's a long-term plan, but it'd be nice to see it every once in a while, just to know that it's an option for us if we ever need it. Yeah. Especially when we're looking to get something out of a game, we can go to that lineup. Because we're not going to give them 90 minutes. Maybe we give them 30 minutes together, and we see something out of that. So yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, the one thing that you did say, Charlie, that I like is that the team, West Ham's team, they all have set roles. It seems, from the management, like you said, he knows exactly how to put them in positions to succeed. He doesn't have probably the depth that he would like, especially if he's looking to the future in terms of playing on Thursdays and Saturdays, because we're experiencing that now. Those games so close together, and you want to win both of them because you know how important both are, and if you don't have the depth. And you get injuries, depth, cards, everything that comes into it. COVID now, all of those things contribute to a struggle. So it's good. You want to build for it, and you got to start with a plan that seems to fit. As long as you can get the players that you want, then you're better off for it. I think, like you said, we're kind of in that premature stage now, trying to get to the point where we know exactly what every position on the field needs to do. And do we have the players? No. Then we need to fill it. Do we have the depth to cover? No. We know those kind of questions right now.
I think you've hit on that perfectly, Gary. Charlie, are we seeing the difference between an experienced manager and David Moyes as opposed to Mikel Arteta, who is in some cases not putting the players in the right positions to succeed?
Maybe I think David Moyes is equally as
culpable,
guilty of doing that at times as well. I mean, if we look at Pablo Fornals, for example, who a player you guys were linked with before we bought him, for example. I used to watch him at Villarreal because I love Santi Cazorla, and so he was sitting next to Santi Cazorla, so I'm like, oh look, that kid's good. But he's been playing out on the left hand side. And it's not his best position. It doesn't get the best out of him. He's only there because we need someone to fill the role, and he has the work rate defensively to do it. I think the difference between Mikel Arteta and David Moyes is potentially, for me, David Moyes is more conservative and has less weight of expectation on his shoulders. I think if we were to go up to a team and play defensive counter-attacking football, park the bus, if you will, and there wouldn't he would go, yeah, we have to do that. We're at that stage where we have to do that because we aren't Arsenal. Arsenal have a much bigger expectations on their shoulders, much bigger goals of getting European football and stuff. We're living in dreamland right now because we have the potential to get European football. Whereas at the beginning of the season, a lot of our people would say our goal is to get 13th or something like that.
Yeah.
I think with Mikel Arteta, I look at it and I just say, here's a guy who I think the experience factor is definitely there. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's probably got higher aspirations than David Moyes does, who, if we're being honest, when he rejoined West Ham the second time was, this is the last chance I have to be a manager at the top level. If this goes badly, no one's ever going to hire me again. Whereas Mikel Arteta is obviously doing something a bit different.
Yeah, David Moyes seems to excel in clubs that, don't get me wrong, have that, don't have the weight of expectation. Like, he took an Everton side and did really, really well with them to a certain extent. He's got West Ham right now in the similar kind of position as Everton back in those years. So I think he's comfortable in that realm, Charlie.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something as a club you have to do. You have to try and get into Europe. You have to try and grow. West Ham will have to try and buy players in the summertime if they get European football next year and grow that way.
Big time. And I think I'm looking at the squad, and this, don't get me wrong, what I'm about to say is an unpopular opinion among West Ham fans. So I'm going to preface this now. Don't expect other West Ham fans to be saying this. We have to sell Declan Rice in the summer. Mm-hmm. He is our golden ticket. Yep. There's very few situations, especially at a club like West Ham, where you have a player come through who is both a youth academy prospect and could go on to play for most teams in the league and go, he is our star guy. Usually we could sell a player. We go, oh, maybe we could get 25 mil for him. Maybe we get 30. We're looking at Declan Rice. We're saying we could get 70, 80, 90, 100 million for him. That's because he's youth. He's got the potential. He's England international, all this other stuff. Again, West Ham fans will not agree with me on this, but I think we should look at him like our Gareth Bale and say, if we sell him, we can then go and buy 6 really good players. Now the 6 players or the 8 players that Tottenham ended up, not all of them worked out. Don't get me wrong. You had Eriksen's and a couple of other people who worked out, but you also had like Vlad Kirikesh, who's nowhere to be seen. But we should be looking at doing that because we don't have a strong squad. We don't have the depth to be able to go forward. And if we're looking to do anything to do in Europe, especially, we're going to need that. I think he's our golden ticket. Most other fans would rather die than see him sold. I'm just being a bit realistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Leicester City and they have a blueprint for that, right? They sold pretty much every year a really big player. Yeah. And, they've taken that money and done well with it as far as their recruitment and whatnot. So it's definitely a blueprint that's out there if you want to follow. And like you said, if Declan is by himself there with quality players at that range in terms of their transfer fees, and you're able to get there now, you sell him, maybe you take a dip in his role, his position on the field, but if you improve everywhere else, then you won't hopefully see any, you want to see a larger dip in form for the entire team, but you'll see some improvements in places where, if I need to have better players for those weekday midweek games, then so be it. That's what we have to do. So it's you have to be disciplined in what you have to do, in what you're doing, but you also have to know, what, sometimes this only comes around once in a while. You got to take advantage of it if you want to continue to grow. And whatever that plan is, the plan is not to fail all the time. It's always to grow and get better. So 4th at this time of the season, you want to be kind of back there again. And how do you do that with the team you got and maybe the extra monies you have coming in? And the extra money's coming in could be players, or they could be by finishing in certain positions on the table. So yeah, I think like I said, there is a table out there to do that, a blueprint out there. Yeah, you got to be disciplined in it though. So you can't take little shortcuts. You get punished for it later, and then you look back a year later, and you're like looking back up at the table and going, how do we get here? So
let's not forget as well, Gary, the situation with Rice that Charlie and West Ham supporters are facing now. We could face that in a year or two now with Bukayo Saka or even Emile Smith-Rowe. And it's something we may have to look at. Declan Rice has been developing for a couple of years now, Charlie, right? At West Ham.
Yeah, it's like his 4th season in the first team, 3rd season in the first team, something like that.
Yeah.
I think the big difference with your two players is you would hope that you can get to the stage where you don't have to sell them. Declan Rice, in order to fulfill his ambitions, is realistically, if we're being honest about it, is going to have to leave West Ham. He's spoken on his Instagram and everything else about wanting to win trophies in his career, wanting to win cups. That's very unlikely to happen at West Ham. If he wants to do that, he has to leave. The difference with you guys is, hopefully, from your perspective, those players won't have to leave to have that situation.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the whole team has to grow. Arteta has to grow with the team, and success has to come organically, month after month, and the team has to grow within its window. Teams always have a window, I would say, and that's what we have to do. Let's take a wider look at the Premiership race. It's all over right now. I would say Manchester City are going to walk away with the title. Gary, what do you think?
Well, no, I mean it looks like that, but over a 13 game span, things could change just a little bit. I mean, who knows what can happen, right? I mean, Liverpool kind of dropped off, considerably after that. I mean, what are they now? They're in like 19. Is that right? 19 points behind, and they were leading the league probably 13 games ago, right? So it can change. So it isn't set in stone. It isn't like when Liverpool ran away with it and we all looked at it and went, this is definitely done. But the way they're playing right now, like today was a walk in the park for them, the way the game went. So, and they've been able to punish teams that when they try to do something, they kind of punish you. And now they're getting healthier. So that's a scary thought, right? They're still, De Bruyne and Aguero are coming back. So if they get anywhere close to the form they've had, then it could be definitely, like you said, lights out, and everybody is fighting for one or the other. The next 5 spots below, which is going to be a bloodbath, I think, the way things are right now. Every weekend it could change, especially if things start to, European games pick up for some of these teams that are up there. So it should be fun. That's what we want, right? You don't want it to be handed to you. So you go through this, you want to kind of feel like you did it yourself, and it's not given to you because others have failed. It's better when you do it yourself. Go out there and get the points.
Charlie, how do you feel? How do you feel about the title race, and who do you think will come second out of that pack?
I mean, we're only 14 points behind. Let's not write us off just yet. No, I think
you're in the conversation.
We're in the conversation. That's all I want to be. That's all I want to be. I think I do think it is City's to lose, obviously. As Gary's just said, I do think they will win it, but it wouldn't surprise me if the gap was a lot smaller come the end of the season. They're in an incredible run of form right now, but the way the table is squished and the way you have teams like us and Leicester who are outperforming certain other sides, it makes it feel like there could be potential scalps again. We're facing them next again. Let's not forget that. But I think when you're looking at second, I think Man United put up a sort of valiant fight for a couple of weeks, but I think they're probably 2 years away from being ready to actually fully challenge for a Premier League title. But they're not far off being able to solidify second place, especially in this scenario. I think second place will come down to them or Leicester ultimately. I think 4th to 5th to 7th or whatever is probably the rest of us, but I think second place will be between Leicester and Manchester United. That's my gut feeling. And I'd probably back Man United more than I would back Leicester to get that. As much as I would prefer Leicester to do it, I think that will probably be the case.
Charlie, have you had any issues with the officiating in recent weeks? I think every fan feels personally about their team and how their games are officiated. Have you had any issues with the officiating with the FA?
Everyone does all of the time. The notable one, of course, was when was it? Not last week, the week before, when Mike Deed sent off Thomas Souček towards the end of the game. VAR looked at it, then sent him off, and then instantly after the game, it was rescinded, which was obviously a big problem. I mean, thankfully, it didn't cost us on that day because it was so late in the game. but there's been a lot of issues like that. I mean, Mike Dean had another one just before that with Southampton the game before. He had the exact same issue where the fourth official said on VAR said you're going to have a look at this. Then they end up sending the player off, then rescinding it again. I think I don't know how you guys feel about it. I think I feel differently to most football fans. Whereas I just look at referee's decision and I go, it just is what it is. Whatever happens. Ultimately, I think human error exists, and it will always be the case because there's margins within the rules. I think unless robots are the people doing it, like in FIFA, then I think there'll always be an argument. And that's not to say when I'm playing FIFA, I don't occasionally shout at the referee for making the wrong decision anyway, when it is still a robot. I think that's the way I tend to look at it anyway. I think it's frustrating that the rules aren't applied consistently. That's my biggest problem. I think if even if you disagree with the rule, as long as it's consistent in every single game and applied in every single game in the same way, then there isn't a problem. That's my issue with it. But yeah, I mean, we've had problems. I think everyone probably
that
has.
never seems to be. It always seems that the narrative fits the action. You know what I mean? There's always some way to explain how and why they did this. Similar incidents are not treated in the same way. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. It's since it's so subjective, and the only thing you can live by is consistency from game to game. And that is the key thing. If the ruling is going to be this way in game A, then in game B, if you see something similar, I would expect to see the same result. If you don't, then your players can't. They can't perform when they have to deal with different rules for different, referees, depending on whether they're on the field or in the VAR box. I think that's also you're seeing inconsistencies, but it's the same people making all the decisions. So as I said, I think it should be a third party up in the booth looking at it, not a current referee taking a day off, sitting up in the box, making decisions that they may get wrong on the field in somebody's eyes. So I kind of like the idea of it kind of being impartial in the sense that if I make this call to a referee on the field, the next week when he's sitting up in the box, will he do the same for me? That kind of stuff. Like it's kind of a it's too much to take you down that kind of conspiracy role when you see something like that. If they're a third party and they don't have any kind of interaction with each other from game to game, then I think it would make it seem more impartial and not necessarily that there's some kind of a situation going on in there when they're kind of making those decisions together. You don't have two referees on the field making a decision, but you do now with VAR. So it's, I kind of felt like it'd be better if they weren't kind of involved with the weekly games as well as the ones up in the booth. That would be something I would like to see because I felt
Gary, hand on heart, would you go back to the way it was before, scrap VAR, and have human error in real time?
I kind of feel like it's taken away from the game as well, right? I mean, no player can even enjoy a goal now because the first thing they do is look to the left, look to the right. Because especially as a defense, if you're a defense, it hurts the defense as well, right? A defensive player now who puts you offside has to play through. And how do they do that when they just went? They did their job. Their job is to put you offside, and they do that. The flag doesn't go up, so now they got that fraction of a second is the difference between the goal going in, and then next thing you know, VAR says, you know what, I didn't see it that way, right? And so then you have the situations where the Van Dijk injury, does that happen if the flag goes up right away? Those types of things they're hurting the game in some sense, but they could, if that referee puts his flag up either correctly or incorrectly,
stops the play.
He stops the play right there, and it dies. The player realizes it's over. And it's offsides, nothing happened. So
and you could potentially save some injuries to players, right?
Yeah. I think if the VAR is hurting defense more than the offense. They get the offensive players are getting the benefit of the doubt, and I think this game should benefit both sides. I mean, the red card to Souček, right? That put him out the game. Luckily, like you said, you didn't lose anything from it, but you may have gained something from it. Some teams like getting that red card in the beginning of the game, and it's over. And then they come back and say, you know what, it was our mistake. And you know what, I just had a loss there, and maybe didn't happen, but that's kind of the situation there when you have this inconsistency that you hurt the defense, and then nobody gets punished, right? They realize that there's an offensive player embellishing what happened. They don't get punished. How can you take away a red and you don't give a yellow when you know the yellow is warranted? The yellow should come too. It should go both ways, but it only seems to be punishing the defense.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of my thought there, is that it's got to help out both sides, and it doesn't right now. It helps out the offense more in my eyes sometimes.
That's right, Charlie. No punishments for simulation, as they called it in the past.
Yeah, I don't really understand why. I think if we've got the technology to apply it in all of these other ways, why is it that we can't look at it and go, he dived, and then give him at least some sort of retrospective punishment, be it a yellow, be it a red? I just don't understand it. Like, there's so many incidents happening almost every week that I feel like if you actually want to stamp it out, that's the way to stamp it out. And I don't understand why we don't use the technology for that, but we do use it for other things.
They're not committed to the process, Charlie, I believe, because transparency really highlights everything, and they don't want everything to be transparent. We
You
see
can
it
see it on the replays, though, so it's not that information is out there. I can go and look at a similar play and say, "Look, I've seen it 100 times."
The
Show
pundits, money drives it, Gary. The pundits will back up what the referees and explain away what the referees have done, be it right, be it wrong. Going to wrap it up. Really liked having this chat. We'll probably do it on the monthly. Charlie, real quick, your ambitions for the rest of the season? Still in the FA Cup, right?
No, unfortunately, we went out the FA Cup to Manchester United a couple of weeks ago. But obviously, it's the title. We're title contenders. We're probably going to win it. Just all the way to the end, final day. Big dubs.
One game.
City,
all the cliches. One game at a time, right?
Exactly. And the next game's against Manchester City, so we start there. And then we carry on, win after win. Yeah, it'll happen. Ultimately, if we can get any European football next season, I'll be happy as a clam. That's all that's as a West Ham fan, I think that's a step forward in the right direction. That's all I want to see from my club, is just progression in the right direction. I don't want to see us have a disappointing end where we don't manage to get anything after such a good start.
Yeah.
And if you take one thing away from this podcast, is that clams are happy.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and listen. If you've enjoyed this segment, if you're watching this, drop a comment. Let us know what we did right, what we did wrong. Drop a comment. Let us know what you would like to see in the segment moving forward. But really, really great to have Gary here with me once again. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
And, of course, Charlie, West Ham, we'll see you next month. And, we'll see what happens. May the best team win, Charlie.
Get ready. That's all I'm saying. Just get ready.
Well, you know what? The one thing that I think, if anything, this season probably helps West Ham is they haven't really looked back. They haven't looked back. They haven't looked forward on anything, right? So, so that's what you want out of your team, is like, I don't care what just happened yesterday. You know what? Tomorrow's another team that wants to take us out. Yeah. So let's try to get it. So
we want Arsenal to get to that mindset as well, and we'll see what happens. Thanks again, Charlie. We'll see you next month. Yeah. Usually, you've been softening the teams up for us in the schedule. We've just done you a huge favor today. We've had a training session with Manchester City, and they're going to go into your game.
I think Luis put an elbow into Ruben Diaz's chest. I think that's going to be sore next week. So he might be hard to breathe.
What I say is this: who was Mikel Arteta's manager at Everton? David Moyes. I'm saying it's all part of the grander plan. It looks bad now, but next week when we come away with a 4-0 win, I'm telling you, it's all part of the grander plan.
Football fans, there is a bigger plan in play. We just don't see it, right?
Yeah.
Once again, that was State of the Game. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Gary. We're out of here. Drop a like, subscribe if you like the content, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone, and be safe out there.